So, who really won the US Israeli war on Iran? This is the question. I'd like to take this from the perspective of who won this round of the nonstop 46-year long US war on Iran. Since the Iranian Revolution, Iran has not had a moment of peace, not a year when they're not targeted with assassinations, coup attempts, internal destabilization efforts, sanctions aimed at total strangulation. Iran, while reconstructing the country and making incredible gains, has had to win each round in order to survive. The June 13th Israeli attack was totally unprovoked, a targeted attack. It was an attack that was planned for months. I want to say during this time, because the population in the US is not for a war with Iran, we were able to organize actions in 70 cities on short notice because the population here has no interest in war, but real solidarity with Iran we need to build. So, who really won this war? Well, you could say in war, no one wins. Their lives lost, their futures destroyed. But what's changed? The 12-day war did expose a new reality. The goal of Washington is to disarm Iran, weaken it, as they've done to Syria after 14 years of sanctions and war. Israel wanted to demonstrate its superiority, to assert itself as a regional superpower. And to do that, they needed to defeat Iran and defeat resistance. And it was a spectacular failure. Iran won by being able to defend themselves, to fight back, and to inspire millions that it's possible. And that to prove, really, that US imperialism and the Zionists are not all powerful. What an accomplishment. Now, Iran is committed to defending its sovereignty, and it will respond to aggression. The message was Iran will resist, will fight back, and will never be surrounded. And so, in that way, the US has really suffered a pretty spectacular setback, a public setback in its war, regionally and internationally. It showed that the Zionists were unable to defeat 2 million Palestinians in 22 months of the most savage genocidal attacks, imposed famine. The thinking was that a surprise attack on Iran, a country of 90 million, could change their fortunes in the entire region. The US Israeli effort to destroy Iran using fleets of US supplied equipment for those Israeli bombers, it was a surprise attack during negotiations when it was least expected. Now, that surprise attack did succeed in killing in one blow Iran's top military command, top scientists, top government administrators in their homes. It was months in the planning. It was an effort to bring the whole state down. It was a huge regime change operation, a horrific attack. Israel and the US called on the population to come out and overthrow the government. Trump gloated the following day. He proclaimed it publicly, his role in using negotiations to catch the Iranian government officials off guard. He demanded Iran's complete surrender. So, when Iran, in self-defense, responding using missiles they had crafted, they were amazingly able to break through Israel's Iron Dome that the Zionists had bragged for years made them untouchable. And suddenly, it's the Zionists who are cowering in their bomb shelters, clawing and fighting each other to get in, barring the door to African and Asian workers they had brought to Israel to replace the Palestinian workforce. So this calculated assault on Iran backfired into a moment of unexpected national cohesion. As Hamid was saying, the US and Israel failed. They didn't achieve their aims. Iran did not collapse into confusion, chaos, infighting. The whole people came together overwhelmingly, and a new layer of leadership stepped forward. The expected internal uprising failed. People were behind the government. And most important, that it burned away in one strike the illusions of the whole younger generation, too many of whom looked to the West. This new generation had to learn and relearn about US duplicity. So, in looking back now, what's different? What's unexpected? Iran, at the crucial moment, had internal cohesion politically and had developed technology steadily and mobilized their own resources and displayed a remarkable capacity to retaliate against the attack. There was an underestimation of Iran's ballistic missile technology. And then, after a week, when Israel suffered one blow after another through its Iron Dome, its major fuel centers hit, ports hit, stock exchanges hit, targets that were untouchable were bombed. Netanyahu openly pleaded with the US to intervene. And again, in full duplicity, Trump said he would consider this and respond in 2 weeks. And that very night, the B 52 bombers took off. Iran's nuclear program was damaged, but not destroyed, and it was secured and moved. So, but all this had nothing to do with Iran's nuclear development. This was propaganda to place impossible restrictions on Iran's right to develop industrially. So the US has suffered a spectacular setback in its war, a public setback, and Iran has displayed the capacity to retaliate by severely also depleting Israel's missile defense system. The clock is working against US imperialism, and its industrial capacity, in many ways, is now hollowed out. Take even the example of the THAAD missile batteries. The US launched over 150 THAAD interceptors, the high altitude missiles, in 12 days. That's 25% of their stockpile during this one period. The Iron Dome and the second tier of defense, the David Sling, couldn't stop the Iranian missiles. So, and this was despite the collusion and active use of radar systems in Turkey, Jordan, the Gulf states, the NATO countries, all working together to block Iranian missiles. They couldn't do it. And Iran claims they have other, more sophisticated, advanced missiles and drones that they can use if there's a new round of attack. So Israel's multi-layered defense can be breached. And in that way, the power balance has really shifted. It's shifted even in other ways. Consider Yemen's blockade of US aggression, of shipping, of even after a bombing attack, 3 F-18s lost in a country that has no air force or navy. It means countries are building their own capacity. They're determined to defend their sovereignty, and time is on their side. The reason, I'll conclude on this, that Netanyahu and Trump gave is that Iran was on the cusp of acquiring a nuclear weapon. This whole threat, the nuclear weapon. Now, this past March, the US vast intelligence community assured Congress that Iran was not in the process of building nuclear weapons. This was a conclusion also reached by the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, false as that agency is. Then, in ordering the strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, he ignored this assessment. And when he was challenged by journalists, his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said, well, the intelligence assessment is irrelevant. So much for real excuses. What Israel and the US were actually targeting was Iran's heroic defense of Palestine and of the axis of resistance. It's a fight against genocide, for liberation, and it's at the very heart of the anti-imperialist struggle in West Asia and beyond. Iran is stronger, it's undefeated, and nationally it has a new understanding of US duplicity. US, Israel, and the West as a whole, in their arrogance, always miscalculates. This resistance will continue. Now, Iran wants peace. They want an end to the nonstop genocidal war on Palestine. I'll just say a remark, though. Iran's accomplishments are not only in missiles. In the midst of sanctions and scarcity, Iran, since the revolution, has made great strides, real social accomplishments in education, in healthcare, in advances in women's education, in maternity care, in the professions, in land reform. There's just an endless stream of hostile propaganda here, and so much that we're not told about what's actually happening in Iran. In many ways, Iran exceeds the US in the welfare of its citizenry on very conscious levels. State universities are tuition free. Life expectancy is on par with the US. Iran has one of the world's most efficient healthcare systems, surpassing the US. Despite the economic sanctions, there's free healthcare for children under 7. There's something that's kind of unique in the world, and it was instituted in 2010, a nationwide basic economic scheme, one of the first globally. No such thing exists in the US. Women in Iran, that's always some mantra that, somehow imperialism is going to save Muslim women, and actually it destroys so many lives. Prior to the Islamic Revolution in 1979, the literacy rate for women under the Western-backed Shah, 42%. That climbed almost immediately within a decade to 98%. Now, female students outnumber male students and have for over a decade. 70% of the STEM graduates are women. 58% of students in professional and doctoral programs are women. And it's not just women without families. There's 9 months paid maternity leave, job protection. It's 12 weeks here in the US. So these benefits are available. The free maternity care, subsidized infertility treatments, workplace child care provisions, housing assistance, loans for married couples, job prioritization. Iran has legalized gender affirming surgery since the 1980s. It has improved access to electricity and piped water. So the reforms are impressive in land reform and so many areas, although they are often disrupted by 46 years of sanctions nonstop targeting each of these. Imperialist hopes were pinned on the installation of a US regime change in Tehran that would be a major blow also to the Belt and Road Initiative and would potentially compromise China's energy security, giving the US de facto control. So another attack on Iran is coming. US power is limited. Iran is preparing. I should also say that China, Russia, and Iran are consciously building a military relationship, not only in trade, but they're preparing. Iran has a 25-year cooperation agreement now with China in energy, in infrastructure, in transport, in digital technology, in advanced industry. It's now integral to the Belt and Road Initiative. It's part of BRICS, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. China is a primary trading partner in West Asia and the principal buyer of Iranian oil. So this means that Iran isn't isolated. It has a lifeline. It's suffered under, all these countries have suffered under US imposed sanctions, and there's a growing partnership that makes Iran both a strategic obstacle, but quite a force in West Asia. All 3 countries, Iran, Russia, China, are US targets, so their cooperation is essential for their survival, and they understand this well. They understand, as we all do, that the US is overextended, can only use coercion. And I want to say for the anti-war movement in the West, we have to be ready to firmly resist this escalating campaign. We need to preserve and expand a real anti-imperialist message. And I think this program helps us to do it. So thank you very much.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on this screen.